They don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hi guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my wonderful co-host.
Hey, I'm Melissa. Hi, JD.
Hey, Melissa, how you doing?
I'm super excited today because Mike's here.
I know. Yeah. This guest today, he brings a ton of value to lots of investors all over America and probably all over the world. We've been lucky enough to be part of one of the masterminds that he's a part of, and really just use his content to help shape our business. So we're really excited. We're bringing you today the founder and host of Just Start Real Estate. Is a real estate investing podcast, and it really helps a lot of newer members with some of the more technical aspects of real estate investing. Mike Simmons, thank you so much for joining us and finding time to get this all figured out.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Awesome. Well, Mike, for some of our audience that may not know who you are or what you've been up to the last decade or so in real estate, can you give us a brief introduction and let them know, kind of where you came from and where you're at now?
Yeah, for sure. So I born and raised in Michigan. Family was automotive, blue collar, union workers. Absolutely no entrepreneur, no business owner in my family of any kind. Kind of went down the path of, union kind of factory worker in the early years of my life, my 20s. And just realized it wasn't for me, and I didn't love it, and I really wasn't happy. And a lot of people do that, right? A lot of people aren't happy in what they do. I just got to the point where I was sick of complaining about it, and I wanted to do something about it. Got involved in real estate in 2008. To the casual listener, could seem like a horrible time to get involved. In fact, it was the best time ever to get involved, right? It's like when everything's on sale, that's when you buy, right? So everything was on sale. Didn't know what I didn't know, but I ended up doing pretty well. Had a nice little trajectory. Wasn't going anything crazy, but I was closing deals and flipping houses, and things were going pretty well. Still working a full-time job in the beginning, trying to do the side hustle thing, and just had a real nasty encounter at work one day. At this point, I had worked kind of my way up the industry in the automotive, and I was in sort of a mid-level manager position. We had a client in. We were working on a project. We were behind. I was managing a team of builders, and we were behind, and they were in the building 8:00 at night on a Friday. We had been working late all week, and we're all working hard trying to get this done. And this particular client that we were working with, just one of the big three, I guess I don't have to go any farther than that, but got real nasty with me, got in my face, said, he asked me why we were late, what was happening with the project. And I told him honestly what was happening. Some of it was our fault. Some of it was kind of shared with them because they supplied a lot of the engineering plans and data and it's things that we were using. And there was some fault to be shared there. No big deal. And he called me a liar, got in my face and said, you're lying. You're a liar. And I was like, wow, I'm here 8:00 at night, managing a team of guys that all want to go home to their wives and kids. And you're calling me a liar. Like this is something. And so I went to my boss later on the same night. Okay. Now it's like 8:30. And I'm like, Keith, what are we doing here? It's 8:30 at night. It's Friday. Everyone's burnt. Like we're not really getting anything done. We should call it for the day. And he said, you need to get your priorities straight. And I said, you know what? You're right. And I left his office and he didn't realize that I was agreeing with him, but in a different way. I was like, you're right. My priority is my wife and my kids who are at home and I haven't seen for the last week. 100% my priorities are out of line. I'm going to fix that. And so I decided at that moment that my side hustle was going to be my way out. It's my escape plan for the prison that I had put myself in my career. And over the next year, I started working on that and I got myself out in 12 months. And 12 months after that, my company grossed in profits $1 million, which was more than I had made cumulatively in the last 25 years of working for somebody. And so that was when my company was. So I always tell people my company was conceived in 2008. My company was born in like 2013. That's when I finally got to the end and I quit my job and started making real money. And my company hockey sticked. I went from doing a couple $100,000 a year, which is a nice side income, to doing over $1 million. It happened in 12 months, right after I kind of started focusing. And so my little baby company was conceived in 2008 and born in 2013.
That's a pretty I wouldn't say common story, because a lot of people haven't got it figured out, but having to choose your priorities and picking financial security and freedom is kind of a common theme that we think about when we talk to a lot of investors, and especially a lot of new investors. They're sitting in that same dead-end job that's sucking their life out of them every single second of every day, and getting the nerve to make that transition is really hard, but it seems to be working out okay for you. And we're happy that you did, because you also provide a lot of value to the community as a whole, and sharing your story. So we appreciate that.
Totally. Yeah. It's funny. I have empathy for people who are working a job that they hate and have this miserable sort of career that they really want out of. I empathize, but I also know to show tons and tons of sympathy toward that is sort of an enabling kind of a process. And so I tend to be a little bit more blunt with people in that position, that I wish somebody was blunt like that with me, because what I didn't tell you in my story was I got started in 2008. I decided I wanted to be a real estate investor in 2003. So I spent 5 years, paralysis analysis, fear, whatever you want to call it. I spent 5 years sort of like not doing anything, but I was reading books. I was going to seminars. I was like doing all the stuff that people do to not have to do what they're actually trying to do. And I made a lot of excuses. And so I try to be a little bit more tough love to people when I talk to them, and just, it basically boils down to this. If you're not happy with something in your life, either fix it or don't complain. Realize that you don't hate it as much as you hate the thought of fixing it. Right. So I had to look, and my dad was in the Marines. And so growing up, we weren't really allowed to complain. We certainly weren't allowed to let fear control us. And as I got to an adult, I forgot some of those lessons, and I started letting fear get a hold of me, and I was too afraid to make the leap. And I just finally kind of had to snap to, and my dad's, voice from being a kid was in my head. And I'm like, this is sort of disgusting. I got to be so disgusted with my complacency that I decided even trying it and failing and it being a total disaster was less painful than living one more day making excuses for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. And not a lot of people want that tough talk, but sometimes they need it. So I think that's a great point. Now, Mike, one of the things that we've heard you speak on a few times, but I think might be super, super valuable for our listeners, is kind of maybe not all of your super secret details, but your overall theory and kind of, one or two tricks for expanding your buyers list. I think that a lot of times in real estate and in investing, wholesaling or fix and flip, everyone's so focused on that front end of the process that dispo is just something that happens. And a few months back, if you're talking the beginning of 2022, April, all you had to do was make a Facebook post or something, and your deals were flying off the shelves faster than you could get them. Now, as the interest rates have gone up and the market shifted a little bit, we're not seeing it be that easy. And I'm hoping that you can bring some sanity and help to our listeners and us.
Yeah, I'd love to. You really whacked a hornet's nest with your stick just now. Like this is definitely my crusade. And I think if I have one unofficial mission in life as it relates to real estate, it's to get people to wake up as to how bad of a job they're doing in dispositions. As good as they're doing on the front end with the sales, like I say sales, dispositions is sales, but on the front end, the acquisition part of it, everyone, I've heard this for years. They'll send their acquisitions team to seminars. They'll pay for training, like they'll track stuff. Like everyone's dialed in and they're willing to spend time and money and just sweat equity to make their front end sales team as sharp as a tack. And they give little to no thought to the disposition side of it. And I think there's as much money to be made or lost on the disposition side as there is on the front end side. And so, you know, I've sat with folks, I won't name names, but I sat with a guy about a year ago who was doing 9 deals on average a month as a wholesaler, 9, and very successful and very happy. And I ended up going to lunch with him. It was a chance meeting at a lunch thing. And I was just talking to him about his meeting. And to be honest with you guys, I'm a little bit of an introvert. And so I was at an event and my plan, and I was with a friend, but my plan was, my little private plan was to go to lunch with my friend and have a quiet lunch where I'm not being pulled in different directions. I'm not being asked a bunch of questions. I can just relax and have lunch and relax my brain. As an introvert, you need your brain to be able to relax for a while. And my friend who I was there with, we met a guy right before lunch and he goes, come to lunch with us. And I was like, oh my gosh, why are you doing this to me? I'm trying to have a quiet lunch. Now it's going to be a training lunch. And I didn't want that. And so we sat down, and I'll be honest, I was sort of cranky. I was sort of salty about having to be in this situation. And this guy starts talking, and my friend's talking to him, and I'm just eating. I'm sort of ignoring. And he's talking about his business and how well it's doing and, you know, all this stuff. And I just stopped chewing once and I said, how's your dispositions process? What's that look like? And he goes, oh, dispositions, easy. I got that nailed. And I said, I thought to myself, oh, this guy's totally screwing it up. Anybody who ever tells me they're that comfortable with what they're doing, I almost can tell you for sure they're not doing it well, because dispositions is as complicated and cumbersome, and there's a lot of strategy. It's not easy, right? And so he was treating it very poorly. He was easy for him because he wasn't doing much. He had this group, handful of buyers. He would send it out. First one to offer him whatever, he would just give it to him. And that was the end of it. That's how he did it. He even went so far as to, and a lot of people hear this and it sounds intuitively smart. And I'm just going to tell you, if you're doing this and you're listening to this, I don't know you and it's not personal, but it's dumb. Don't do it. He would get a property under contract. He would send it out to his buyers with the price he wanted and a buy it now price, like eBay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm asking 150, but for 160, you could buy it now. And he's like, oh, it's the greatest idea I've ever had. And I said, you are literally losing money every time you do that. That is the worst idea ever. And he was giving people first looks. Like, he had a couple buyers. I said, let me see it before everybody else and I'll make you an offer. He was letting that happen. All of that crap is garbage. All of it. Right. And so he'll text to me now every couple of months and he'll go, dude, you are making me so much money. Like, I can't thank you enough for straightening me out. And so, yeah, I recently put out on Facebook, that, hey, I'll show you, I'll teach you how I built my buyers list, for example. It's just one aspect of doing the dispo side. But I can tell you, if I sold my business tomorrow, I believe the biggest value item that I have for sale in my business is my buyers list. Because if you take that away from me, my revenue will instantly go down, right? Like, if you take it away and erase my memory of who all my buyers are, my revenue will go down dramatically overnight. If you take away a person or some of my process, I'll be okay, because I know 5 years ago when I would send a property out, and then today when I send a property out, I'm getting about 50 to 100% more for the same property. And it has nothing to do, I'm just adjust for the market, right? I'm not saying it's because the market went up, I'm getting more. Obviously I am. But I'm getting more on average, right? And it moves with the market, because the people that I was selling to in the beginning, I only had a handful of people. And so if I tell you and 2 other people I've got a car to sell, one of you might buy it, but if no, you know, there's no real competition. But if I tell 1,000 people in my market that I'm selling this car, my likelihood of selling it for more goes up, right? Because I'm in front of more people. And so buyers list is partially about more, but it's really about better. It's not more buyers. Like, I don't have a crazy big buyers list, but we build it, we prune it, we build it, we prune it. And I've done that over time. And I created this quick video because I'm like, I am so sick of people not understanding how important this is. I'm just going to show them how I built mine. And so I did that because the people that I sold to 5 years ago, they're still in business in my market. They're still flipping houses, but they haven't bought a property from me in years. And I know they're still buying properties, but I have such a strong buyers list full of like really sophisticated, good flippers, but also like hedge funds and people who buy high volume and their margins are lower, right? If you buy 2 houses to flip this coming year, like 2023, if you buy 2 houses to flip, you kind of want both of them to be good ones, right? You can't afford to have a clunker. You're only doing 2. But if I said, now you're going to flip 500 houses, do they all need to be home runs? Do they all need to be triples? No, you need a lot of singles, some doubles, some triples, and an occasional home run, right? So when you start selling to hedge funds and higher volume investors, they don't have to squeeze every penny out, right? And so they're paying more. They just are. The buyers of my market, the ones that used to buy it for me, they can't believe I'm still selling because our prices that we're asking are ridiculous, but we're getting it.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense for those buyers that you used to sell to compete because it doesn't fit their business model. I think some of the people that we've talked about with dispositions, so they don't even have a single person on the buyer's list that used to be on the buyer's list. And we've also heard stories where some of these bigger investors, maybe not like hedge funds level, they need to keep their crews busy so their crews don't run off. And people forget that just because it doesn't work for you, that it doesn't work for everybody.
I've had local buyers overspend by a lot. And to the point that I was like, I had one time where I just knew there was no math where they made money. There just wasn't. I don't care if they were doing all the labor themselves, if they had some storage facility with all the materials already bought, there's no way they make money. And so I went to the closing and just said, I appreciate you buying this house. Thank you for your business. You got to tell me what you're doing with this thing. I don't see how you're going to make money. And he said, I'm not going to make money. But to your point, he said, I have a crew that doesn't have anything to do right now. And if I don't give them a project, they're going to scatter to the wind. They're going to go find other things to do. And I won't have them when I need them for the next money maker. And so I'm just buying this to sort of bridge the gap. And it blew my mind. It completely changed my thought process on how I market my properties, how I price them, because the numbers don't work for me and I don't see how conceivably anybody could make money. It's not my job to figure out how my buyer is going to make money. It's not my job. My job is to sell it for the most possible because all of my employees are somehow connected to profits. And so I have a duty to my employees to make the most money on every single thing I do. And I can't tell you why some people pay what they pay. I don't know. But I also don't know, now in the world where people are buying a lot of short-term rentals and things, they don't have to have a lot of equity. They can be at market value and still work for short-term rentals because of the short-term rental market. So yeah, man, I just think the buyer's list is a huge component, but there's just a lot in the dispo process that is completely broken in most companies, and they just don't even know it. They have a problem and they're not aware of it. And there's 2 ways you make money. You either do more deals, right? Create more revenue, or you spend less money, right? Like if you do $1 million in sales and you only profit 200,000, changing your process, kind of improving your dispo process gets you up to 300,000 or 400,000. Like you just went up 50 or 100% on your net and you didn't do one more deal. You just got really better at what you are already doing. So that's where I see a huge opportunity for people, right? Even in a market that people are struggling to get deals, do a better job on the back end. There's money there sitting there that you're losing every time you do a deal.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems in the recent timeline for us in our business is, well, one of us struggles with recognizing that there is a definite sense of urgency on the dispo side.
Which one of you struggles with that? You're being very coy, but there's only 2 of you there.
Yeah, so I am not always as diligent on the sense of urgency as Melissa is. Melissa's a very action-oriented person. Good. So we've lost deals because I was a little bit slow on getting that contract signed or getting the docs to closing, all that kind of stuff. And I know you've talked about decreasing the time from contract to close. I'm wondering if you could share some insights on that.
Oh my God. You've just hit the second hot point of my life. So there's nothing that will kill a deal more than time. Time always. I've never really heard a story where someone said, I'm working with a seller and I kind of lost track of, the deal, and it's sort of, I forgot, and and all of a sudden I made way more money. Like that doesn't happen, right? It's, hey, I had this deal under contract. I kind of lost track of things. I didn't get the dispo side done, and they canceled the contract, or they went dark on me, right? That's what happens. And so when we get a deal under contract, there's sort of this, to use a basketball analogy, there's a shot clock. There's a clock going off, and it's ticking in my head. And so it's all hands on deck. We go as fast as humanly possible. Like, we have KPIs that are built around the speed of the dispositions process, right? I know how many days it should take once we get the PA to get that out to our buyers in the form of a marketing piece, right? Email. How many days from that email going out should it take to get a deposit from a buyer? How long should it take once we got the deposit to get to closing and then get paid, right? All of these things, I measure my dispo guy on, he's measured on speed almost alone, like almost exclusively on speed. And everything is faster. Like, I used to work in between automotive and just stuff I did as a young person. When I was really young, I worked for UPS for a while. And UPS, at least back then, is probably just as bad or worse now. They had everything timed like to the second. As a driver pulls up and stops the truck, they have timed how long it takes that driver to get out of his seat, go get the package, figure out where it goes, get out of his car, go to the house, come back, sit in a seat, put it in drive, and go. They know how long it should take you to do that, and they're constantly pushing you to do it faster. I do the same thing in my business. We preach speed probably more than anything else. Speed, 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 speed. If my dispo guy says, hey, we got the contract, we got a deposit, we're going to close a week from tomorrow. And I say, can we close tomorrow? Well, no, the buyers are out of town. They're not going to be back. They'll be back on Friday. Can we close on Friday? Like, why are we closing even 1 second later than we can close? And so it's a constant mantra in our business. Like, I have zero tolerance policy for things not getting done fast, right? We want to get the most money. So it's a little bit of it's a tug of war game between trying to maximize the money and getting it to closing fast. So the only time I allow us to like throttle down a little bit is when my dispo guy has like multiple offers and he's negotiating. All right, I want him to do that. But the minute we get a contract, let's get that contract out to our buyers. The minute we have a buyer locked up, let's get to closing. It's fast, 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 because we've lost deals because we were too slow. It's happened to us more than once, and it happens to most people. So the only remedy for that, and by the way, when you get something under contract and you think that their sister's husband, who's a part-time realtor, isn't talking to them and telling them they should have got more, or their neighbor who they went and bragged, I got my house sold, doesn't tell you about the other neighbor who sold for way more. If you don't think these conversations are happening like crazy every single day after you sign that contract, by the way, other investors are sending postcards and claiming they'll give them more money. Like, all these things are happening all the time. Your only defense is speed. You got to get to closing, and not only get to closing, but it's really important that when you get a purchase agreement signed with a seller, that you never let ever more than a week go by without talking to them. Even if there's no news, you're still in the title, still working on that, and you're working. There's no news. We call them and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, just giving you a call, let you know we're still working on your file. We should be able to close by X date. How's everything going? Is there anything we can do for you? All that, right? If it's one of those where it's like kind of bang, bang, where we need to close in a few weeks, we're calling them every couple of days, right? Because the longer you go without talking to that seller, the more their brain starts going, I don't really know much about these guys. Like, what if they're scamming me? Like, what if this isn't real? Like, what if they're going to steal my house? Like, they all these doubts come in because they haven't heard from you. And so one of the biggest mistakes wholesalers make is they get the contract and they're all about the dispo process and they forget about the seller. And that seller every day is moving closer to ghosting you or canceling the contract almost always. So you have to get them back to understanding you're on their side. You're a good person. You're on top of it. And those are some of the huge ones that we see. Not staying in touch with the seller, speed, just destroying it in the dispo process, just being flawed. Because most people build their dispo process for convenience, not for profit. So that's the real struggle.
That's
great.
Definitely some stuff we struggle with internally in our business. I think you provided a couple of really key points that I think that all of us can learn from. Mike, if we wanted to send our listeners to find out more about you, I know you got some really good products out there. I know you got some really good free educational stuff. Where should we send them to put them in contact with you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I know I mentioned the buyer's list video that I made. If that's like the most interesting thing the person heard that they can just DM me on Facebook. I'm Mike Simmons, or you can go to Just Start Real Estate on Facebook and DM me. Just DM me and say, hey, send me the link for the buyer's list video, and I'll do that. You don't have to sign up for anything. It's just I send you a link. But I did create a landing page for your listeners. So if you go to mikesimmons.com/jam, you can get a free copy of my book. I don't know if this is on video for anybody, but it's called Level Jumping. I wrote this book, published it a couple of years ago, but it is really how I built my business. And it's sort of like a 102 level class. It's not how to find deals or how to market. It's like once you got a business kind of up and off the ground and you're kind of doing semi-consistent and you kind of have a feel for what's going on and you have some of the basics, how do you take that sort of side hustle and turn it into a full-fledged business that runs without you? That like I did $1 million last year. I swear to you, I don't think I walked into more than 3 houses. And that was only because my acquisitions guy wanted my opinion on the rehab, because I used to flip houses, but I could literally never see a house and the business runs without me. So that book is really how I managed to go from like side hustle to full-fledged business. So if you go to mikesimmons.com/jam, you get a free digital download of that. And then I have a podcast, like you said in the beginning, Just Start Real Estate. So if you love podcasts and that's kind of your thing, go check it out. It might be helpful for you.
Awesome, Mike. Well, we really appreciate your time. And we look forward to talking to you again.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate being here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.